On here on Friday Night Fights. Right now it is fight time. Let's go ringside to Bob Papa and Teddy Atlas. Guys.
All right, thanks, Brian and Max. We welcome you to the Foxwoods Casino in Mashantucket, Connecticut. Glad you can join us for Friday Night Fights on the Deuce. And it is presented to you, as always, by Budweiser. Our first fight, a 10-round cruiserweight bout between Don Diego POEDER and SAJJAD ABDUL AZIZ. And Abdul Aziz, formerly known as Terry Pitts, fighting out of Detroit, Michigan, 6'1", 195.5 pounds. He's 31 years of age, 11-4-4, with 3 knockouts in his career. His opponent tonight, born in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, fighting out of Los Angeles, Don Diego POEDER, is 26 years of age. He weighed in at 198 pounds. POEDER with a 21-1 record with 15 knockouts. POEDER has not fought in 8 months and 3 weeks. His last fight was on May the 5th of 1998, his only loss. He was beating Robert Daniels handily. In fact, he was ahead 89-82, 88-83 on the judges' scorecards after 9 rounds, but Daniels takes him out in round number 7 with that left hook. So POEDER got caught, and POEDER came up short. Abdul Aziz, we saw him here on the Deuce in November in Miami, taking on previously undefeated Eliseo Castillo, who was 11-0 with 10 knockouts, and Aziz knocked Castillo down. And unfortunately for Aziz, it was ruled a 10-round draw, even though, Teddy, you and I both had Aziz winning that fight in Miami. The referee for our first bout is Steve Smoger, and let's take a look at the rules as governed by the state of Connecticut. No 3 knockdown rule, no standing 8 count. Fighter may not be saved by the bell in any round. The referee or doctor can stop the fight. Accidental cuts, they'll go to the scorecards after 4 rounds are complete. Scheduled for 10 rounds in the cruiserweight division. SAJJAD ABDUL AZIZ got a late start in the boxing game, had scholarships to play football at Grambling and Tennessee State at the age of 17. Rather than graduation, he told us, he was on his way to prison. He spent 5.5 years in jail. Feels like he wasted his football career. He became a Muslim in 1995, took up boxing at the age of 24. And he's been sort of a pleasant surprise, Teddy, in the boxing game. But I guess one of the things that has brought him back to earth as far as his overall life might be a detriment when it comes to being a boxer.
Yes, he's embraced the Muslim religion, which has probably saved his life, turned his life around. But being at peace with himself sometimes doesn't allow him to be a finisher in the ring. And sometimes he doesn't want to do, he mentioned to us yesterday, do harm to his fellow man. Well, for a fighter, that can obviously be a very bad conflict.
They said I'm a compassionate guy, but he has to finish. You take a look at the knockout ratio. 11 of POEDER's knockouts have come in the first 2 rounds. And Aziz not a big puncher with knockouts in rounds 1, 2, and 3 in his professional career.
POEDER's a big question about him, obviously, especially coming off his last fight, the knockout, is his chin. Does everything well. Good hand speed, punches well. Good boxer, good technical skills, maybe stands up like a European a little bit too much straight up. Needs to sometimes bend and dip a little bit.
We've seen POEDER before here on ESPN2, and he was involved in one of the wars that we've had on the air back in June of 1997, a 10-round stoppage of Terry Ray. Ray was down in the 1st and 2nd round. POEDER went down in round 5, and finally POEDER stopped Ray in the 10th round of that fight.
POEDER's taken on a tough order here, coming off his first loss and a knockout loss. Tell you the truth, Bob, anytime I had a guy coming off his first loss, especially a stoppage loss, I wanted a tune-up, a warm-up, an easy body in front of the guy. This is not an easy body. Aziz is a solid opponent to be fighting at any time, much less coming off your first loss.
Well, Aziz feels that he has himself in shape and that he is committed now more than ever to the game. His last 2 outings have been his best. Here in September, right here at Foxwoods, had an 8-round win against Richard LaMontagne. And then he had the draw with Castillo in Miami against the Cuban. Well, Aziz has been at the 500 mark in his last 6 fights, sporting a 2-2-2 record. You know, one thing about POEDER, too, we talked about that long layoff. He hasn't fought since May. Teddy told us when he went back into the gym in the fall, he suffered a cut along his eye, and he wouldn't tell us which eye it was.
Yeah, he thought this might show beforehand, and maybe somebody would get an advantage.
good round one for Puder, and Aziz has had some answers here in this first round. So that 10-round cruiserweight round one is complete. Now, still to come in tonight's main event, we will get a look at Dana Rosenblatt squaring off against Sam Calderon. Rosenblatt, very talented young boxer, the only loss in his career to Vinny Pazienza. Calderon, a former sparring partner of the man he'll fight in tonight's main event. Glad you can join us for Friday Night Fights on the Deuce. Bob Papa along with Teddy Atlas. And Teddy, Rosenblatt's getting set to fight Aaron Davis. He pulls out of the fight sometime this week. Does that change the game plan at all?
Well, I'll tell you, it changes one thing. There's an old adage in boxing, Bob. It says, you know, sometimes guys in early rounds go through a feeling out process. Well, you know what? These two guys throw that right out the window, because he was supposed to, here you are, Aaron Davis, 33-1, and supposed to fight, Rosenblatt is 33-1, supposed to fight Aaron Davis, former world champion. What happens 2 days ago? Davis pulls out, replacement Sam Calderon. Sam Calderon was sparring 2 weeks ago with Rosenblatt, so they don't feel each other out. These guys know each other.
Yeah, exactly, and it'll be interesting to see you know, how Rosenblatt deals with the mental letdown of not having the fight that he had wanted to have against a guy who's a former champion in Aaron Davis. Instead, he's fighting Calderon. But right now, round number 2 underway between Don Diego Puder and SAJJAD ABDUL AZIZ. Take a look at some punch numbers in round number 1 as Aziz comes forward. Fairly even round, and Aziz, maybe he has found that killer instinct.
I tell you, this was a tough opponent to take off a loss. And I'll tell you another thing about Aziz. A guy with 4 knockouts, he's very underrated as a puncher. He's only got 4 knockouts, but you got to remember, they've been against good fighters. I think that his knockout record, Bob, is really not indicative of his power. He scored knockdowns in a lot of fights. His last fight against Castillo, an undefeated 11-0 fighter, he had him down twice.
Well, he said that, you know, he is a compassionate guy, but that was something he was working on.
Back in '98, he fought former world champion Leon Zababa. Had Barber down in the last round. Wound up being a draw. I think he's very underrated as a puncher. And 2 reasons. One, as I said, he's fought good fighters. Another reason is I don't think he's a good finisher. He hurts guys, he drops guys, but he doesn't do the finishing part.
One thing about Aziz, you know he's a pretty good athlete. When you have football scholarships to play middle linebacker at Grambling and Tennessee State. And he seems to be at peace with himself in his life, and right now here in round number 2, he is taking it to Don Diego Puder.
And he's teaching Puder, if there's such thing as looking in the mirror and reflecting off of yourself and finding out something and copying the guy. He's teaching Puder how to not stand up straight, how to bend, because Aziz is pretty slick in there. Moves his head, punches at the right time. An experienced fighter learns when to punch. You punch at the wrong time, you get hit. You punch at the right time, you hit. Aziz has been a little bit more aggressive than we've seen him in the past. In the past, we've seen him as a counterpuncher. Tonight, he's pressing it a little bit more. I would not be surprised if that's a direct reflection of what happened in his last fight with Castillo, where he felt he won the fight, he wound up with a draw. He feels he has to take things into his own hands.
But Puder is down. Aziz stiffs him. 5. Puder up at the count of 6.
He's hurt, too. His legs are really under him.
Cannot be saved by the bell in any round in the state of Connecticut.
I said this was a dangerous fight to be taken off of his last fight.
There's the bell, and you see the compassionate Aziz make sure Puder's okay.
And that's what's hurt him in the past.
Freddie Roach, the trainer, in Don Diego Puder's corner.
How you feel, Don? You okay, son?
Yeah.
All right. Now here, Don. You can't move back against this guy, okay?
Push on water, push on water, push on water, Brian.
You're going to give him his range, all right? You're fighting in his range. You got to step in with that quick jab, double the jab up, all right, and look for the hook to the body. Don't trade right hands with this guy, okay? He's sucking you with right hand, all right? Now here, Don, you can't reach for this guy. You've got to step with the jab, okay, and use your feints on the way in.
Teddy, let's take a look at the knockdown late in round number 2.
Yeah, you're going to see that right hand, nice and straight, right down the middle. And POEDER was throwing a right hand. He got beat to it. Here it is again from another angle. POEDER's throwing his right hand, a little bend in the elbow, takes longer. Aziz's was straight as an arrow, got there first. There it is, straight as an arrow at the tip of the chin. And I guarantee you, POEDER only knows one thing. I was throwing a right hand, and next thing I know, I'm on the floor.
So Don Diego Puder, who was knocked out in his last fight to suffer his only professional loss, may have been outworked in round number 1, and he gets dominated in round number 2 and knocked down by SAJJAD ABDUL AZIZ.
As we were saying earlier, Aziz only 4 knockdowns. Very underrated in the power category. He lands clean. It's just that he's been in there with good fighters, but he's dropped a lot of fighters. Anybody who drops a lot of fighters does have power, even if they don't have a lot of knockouts.
You know, we asked Puder, a right hand sent him down again.
He set that up with the body shots, and then he came up top. Caught Puder walking right in.
A perfect right hand by SAJJAD ABDUL AZIZ. Steve Smoger making sure that Puder's okay.
The big difference from this right hand and the one the last round is there's a lot of time left.
There's no 3 knockdown rule, but Steve Smoger is in close, and he'll stop this thing in a moment's notice. Another right hand. Puder loses his mouthpiece, and down it goes again, and Steve Smoger says, forget it. At 1:45 of round number 2, Don Diego Puder has been knocked out by SAJJAD ABDUL AZIZ. And I guess, Teddy, he's learned how to finish.
Yeah, he sure has. And he had a different attitude. He was more fiery this fight, and I'm sure that it had a lot to do with the decision in his last fight. A draw which he felt he won. And which he had the guy down twice. He figured this time he will take care of things in his own judges. Left and right hand.
We asked Puder if he was worried about the effects of the layoff and the knockout loss, and he said, I wouldn't know until I stepped into the ring. Well, Puder found out, getting knocked down in round 2 and knocked out in round number 3. He said he knew nothing about Aziz coming into the fight. He knows a lot about him now. We're going to take a look at the first knockdown in round number 3, and Teddy was a short right.
Yeah, here it is. You can see Aziz has Puder against the ropes, and Aziz is going to work to the body here a little bit, I believe. There he goes to the body, and all of a sudden, boom, goes upstairs. After he had his eyes down for the body, came upstairs, and Puder walked right into it. But you got to give Aziz credit. He set it up.
Now, this is the end of the fight.
At the end, he jumped on the guy. The guy's hurt already. Another right hand. Right hands is what did all the damage tonight.
Steve Smoger stopped it
here
in
again,
round number 3.
Here again, you can see the new finishing Aziz. Put Puder down for the final time. And as you said, the referee stopped it then.
Well, we've had a chance to talk with SAJJAD ABDUL AZIZ several times, and he's become a very personable young man, and he hopes to make his mark in boxing. He makes a big statement tonight. Here's our ring announcer, Mark Biro.
Everybody who watches who knows me well,
the time, 1 minute, 12 seconds of the 3rd round. The winner by technical knockout, SAJJAD ABDUL Aziz.
So Abdul Aziz picks up his 4th knockout. He improves to 12-4-4 as he comes up with an impressive win, stopping Don Diego Puder, heavily favored, at 1:12 of round number 3. Here's how Aziz finished off Puder. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll check in with Brian and Max on Friday Night Fights on the Deuce.